What's going on, YouTube? Today's content comes from Jordan Peterson and is titled What a Typical Day Living in North Korea Looks Like with Yeonmi Park. I'm guessing they're going to talk about what a typical day looks like living in North Korea. The guest is Yeonmi Park. Before I start the video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Now, let's figure out together what it's like to live in North Korea for a day.
So you spent a lot of time when you were a kid completely on your own because your father was eventually put in a prison camp and for a long time. And then your mother spent a lot of time away from you because she had to do what she needed to do to raise money so that you could survive. But also she was trying to deal with the situation with your father. So you and your sister, how much age difference is there between you two?
3 years.
And she's older?
Yes, I was 8 years old and she was 11 years old.
And you spent a lot of time on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Months?
Years. 3 to 4 years.
So what would tell me about a typical day and a typical week when you were on your own? So you'd get up in the morning, you said the roosters would crow. There's no electricity, the roosters would crow. You were living in a city at that time?
That time I was moving around a lot. So initially I was left alone with my sister when I was 8 years old and 11 my sister. We were living like that for 2 years and then our relatives separated us. Our uncle took my sister and my aunt took me to the countryside. That's how I lived also on our 2 years like that way. And so my typical day is like, when the rooster like cries, in the summertime, usually 5:30 a.m. and the wintertime is 7 a.m. They're pretty accurate. So North Korea still cannot afford the clocks. And that's how we follow the, rooster, the timeline. We get up and we go to the mountains and do the daily work. We go, and the regime also assigned the children to raise rabbits at home. And then we skin them and give the skin to the regime so they can make the soldiers coats with it.
Okay, so just starting off, that's very different. A typical day for a North Korean child, they're skinning rabbits and giving them to the men. That's wow. Like that's very different. It's very different.
So everybody gets assignment with the regime. And also the thing is that they don't even have fertilizer. So they make sure that everybody bring their own bathroom stuff to the school. So tons of them. So even when you're a child, you get tons of assignments from the regime. Every single one of them associate to something and get your assignment and get it done collectively.
Yes, well, you said that as a school child, all of your friends, your peers, as well as the adults, were set out all the time to collect dog waste and human waste, and that was actually stolen from toilets because it was valuable. It had to be handed over to the state because that was the only source of fertilizer.
Yeah, so even that, so I remember.
So it's no cows in North Korea? They need people to bring their own waste and dog waste as fertilizer in the fields when they work? Wow, wow. See, it just be grateful. Be grateful if you're born in America, man. I know even here people are born into some sticky and tough, not ideal situations, but you could be over here hunting for dog poop. I don't think that job pays very well.
One of my culture shock was when I was seeing the trash cans for the first time in my life, because there was no trash can in North Korea. We literally had nothing.
She said seeing trash cans was a culture shock.
To throw away. And coming to the West, where people are having these trash problems, it's like, where the heck am I? And in North Korea, even your own poop is so valuable that they fight for poop. It's like the war on poop. And if you don't bring the quota, you're going to be punished by the regime. So the kids is rather than they even school, they don't study. They send out us to hunting for poops and everywhere and gather them, bring it to school afterwards.
Right. Well, that was one of the most striking parts of the book. I've read a fair bit about poverty-stricken existence under totalitarian regimes, but that was the first time I'd encountered that particular wrinkle, let's say. So, all right, so you're 8 years old and your sister is 11, and you get up with the roosters and you have work to do. What are you eating at that point? How much are you eating, and where do you get your food?
It really depends. In North Korea, it's not like when you eat, it's so random, like what you get that day. It's that's the thing. I never seen a cookbook. How do you find the half pounds of pork and flour and like scallion? Like we just
She says when you eat, it's random. I never seen a cookbook.
eat whatever we have at that moment. So if that day we had potatoes who were like frozen outside.
When you eat, it's random. Like that, even that phrase, the concept of that. I don't think most Americans, people in the West could even relate to that. When you eat, it's random. That's wow. You don't even know when you're gonna eat. And I'm sure there are people here that could relate to that, but I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, like it's like this is everyday life for all of these people.
We just eat whatever we have at that moment. So if that day we had potatoes who were like frozen outside because we didn't have a place to put them, then they becomes very dark colors. We cook them and then we put lots of water in it, and then some dried cabbage in it, because usually water fills you up. So a lot of food has a lot of soup in it in North Korea to fill you up. And we make sure that we have enough food for the evening. We divide each meal, so depending on how much food we have that day, in the morning I more like to do public distribution for each one of us, and how much you can eat per like certain meal. And some days we just cannot eat.
And who was distributing it?
My sister was the one more like chopping wood because she was bigger. She was doing more manual work, and I was the one more like cooking and doing the domestic work.
And where was the food coming from, apart from what you gathered?
Sometimes my mom, before she goes away, like for several months, she leaves us with a few kilograms of corn and like other grains. Then we have to divide it for like 6 days. We don't know when she comes back or
Well,
she will ever come back.
You told a story at one point about your mother leaving. I believe she was gone for several months, and she left you some money. Mm-hmm. And you and your sister spent it on sunflower seeds and something else, some cookies on the way back from where your mother left from, and then you had no money for all the time that she was gone.
Exactly. So we learned that lesson the first time.
Wow. Their mother left them some money for food while she was gone, and all they were able to get is sunflower seeds and cookies, and they had nothing else left. Man, I feel like I'm jumping into this mid-conversation. I feel like there's some bits and pieces of context that I don't exactly know about, but it sounds like a day in North Korea is not easy.
Time she left us, gave us some money, and then we never had those kind of money, big money in our hands. So on the way back, we bought sunflower seed and some cookies in the plastic bag. And then we had nothing left for us, and we were not even so in North Korea we don't even have phones. It's not like you can call up somebody, where are you? Like a lot of times they go out and they never come back. They might die on a disease or station, like, or accidents. A lot of people never hear back from. So going on a journey in North Korea is like higher chances of you never seeing them again.
Right, that makes sense. A lot of people probably go away and don't come back, and even while they're gone, since they don't have phones, they can't even call back and communicate with a loved one where they're at, if they're safe, if they made it to their destination. When somebody leaves, you hug that person, you don't know if they're going to make it back when you say goodbye. Wow.
And so even though mom would say, I will come back, but we never knew she would. And once that happened, the first time we learned the lesson, mom would like leave us a few kilograms of grains, then we would divide as much as we could, so we would not run out until she comes back.
And you said that all you ever thought about, and your sister as well, was food. Mm-hmm. And that you dreamed about bread, and you fantasized about bread, and you talked about how much bread you could conceivably eat, and that you were possessed all.
Bread is pretty good.
all the time with hunger.
I know, I'm like still thinking, as a child, like I never ate till I felt full. Because so I never knew what was like limits of my own stomach was. I never knew how much should I be fed so I feel like full. So as a young man, I literally thought if I even eat the mountains of food, I thought I would never feel full. So we would compare how much I can eat more. So my sister said like I'm 100, I'm 1,000, then like a mountain and 10 million, and whatever the number, whoever comes up bigger. And that's how we were just like dreaming of it. That was the only thing on your mind. So that's the thing. When people talk about like the civilization, right? It falls when you don't eat. People like become animals. You lose all those dignity. All you're thinking is just food, basic survivor. And that's what my people always dealing with, the basics.
So, from what I can understand about being in North Korea, it seems like the regime has a very tight grip on the lives of everyday citizens. It's like just a deprived life to live. You know, you got kids here in America depressed because their picture didn't get enough likes, but over there, kids are dreaming about bread and just imagining what it's like to have a full stomach. You know, you really got to appreciate where you come from, and I can't say that, stress that enough. Appreciate the privileges you have because you could have been born somewhere else.
Survivor.
Yeah, and you were at that time too. You were seeing death everywhere as a consequence of starvation.
Mm-hmm. It's I still remember like one day my sister and I walked by near the well. It's like people bring the drinking water. There's a young man, I don't know, like maybe teenager. He lies down and his intestines just comes out of him, and he was still alive. And like, I'm hungry, give me something. But as a young mind, I didn't even feel sorry. That's the thing haunts me the most, is that I feel nothing all my life there. Like, and because every single thing I saw was like that, and now I'm thinking, was I a psychopath? Like, how did I feel nothing about it?
No, you can't call yourself a psychopath. You can't do that. That's just the environment you were raised in. You can't, you can't do that. I hope she's gotten over this, seriously. I know it's a lot to process. I'm just saying I hope that she doesn't feel guilty or nothing like that. Because if you're born in that situation, you born in that situation. It's just what you see. You can't feel sorry for a random person who's starving because you and your whole family is starving.
But that's like the so desensitized North Koreans are. Like
I
we
think
don't.
if you're in shock, you were in shock
Mhm.
all the time. I mean, you said in many of the experiences you had, for example, that you felt like you were outside your body watching. And that's a classic sign of dissociative stress. And you were in a situation like that all the time. All the time. So I don't think that you have to consult your conscience about that. It's in your book itself. There's no shortage of empathy on display. So, and I don't think it's a comment on your character. It's a comment on the absolute horror of the situation that you found yourself in. And obviously, you were capable of great loyalty to your family members and even to some of the people that treated you very, very badly. I mean, the men that you were involved with, in part, once you escaped from North Korea, you had ambivalent relationships with. But I mean, in some, you were able to see their humanity.
Yeah, see, I definitely jumped into this conversation midway. It's a lot of stuff here. I'm sure I didn't hear.
Relationships with, but I mean, in some, you were able to see their humanity despite the terrible situation that you had been placed in by them. So I don't think there's any issue of you not having the full range of human feelings. It's just you were in situations that were so terrible that no one, fortunately, no one in the West essentially can even imagine being in a situation like that. None of us, to speak of,
Bingo.
a very small minority of us, have ever been hungry for ever, let alone for any protracted period of time, and certainly not to the point of chronic malnutrition.
Wow. Yeah, that was a good conversation. Very interesting. I mean, I guess final thoughts just to wrap it up. You know, a lot of people have, you know, a negative outlook on this country. You know, of course, it's not perfect. No country, no system is perfect. But when you hear people coming from backgrounds like this, it, you know, at least the way it makes me feel is it makes me feel grateful that, you know, I was born in the situation that I was, and I'm gonna take advantage of every opportunity and every advantage given to me that I've gotten, and try to make the world a better place. You know. But yeah, shout out to Jordan Peterson. Shout out to Yomi Park. I gotta watch this full podcast or interview. But on the way out, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Till next time, guys. Peace.